So I'm Grace. I am an alcohol ink artist, and I'll be doing your masterclass this afternoon with Masterpeace London. Okay, so I am going to start with the wash. So I'm going to cover all of my paper with it. It just means that, oh, hang on. Firstly, I forgot. Doesn't matter if you have forgotten, but I didn't wipe down my paper first, just to get off all that dust. I'm just going to quickly do that, because it does, if you do have, for example, an animal or have a particularly dusty house, it does affect the flow of the thing. Right, let's start that again, shall we? As I said, you'll find that when you're doing the wash, it will dry quickly, and it will create just this beautiful natural sky. You might find that the blue is leaving some pinks and purples, as I mentioned before. It's not an issue for me, I quite like it, but I know that some people find it that frustrating. So if you have little droplets left on your painting, like I do, that's what I generally use the cotton bud for, or a bit of tissue paper. You can leave them, and in water scenes it's quite nice because they do dry sort of bubbly. But if, for example, it's the skyline and I'm not so keen on that, if you just dab with your tissue or cotton bud, and it's just collecting those droplets off your page. So I've done my skyline. I'm going to add another couple of drops to my blue shot glass so that the horizon is finished and I'm going into where the sea is. So I might make the water a bit choppy, so just create those waves with the wash. What you're doing is really just laying the base for your painting. You might want to add a bit of green in with that blue wash, so the sea isn't one colour. So again, I've got these droplets left up as it dries. So again, I'm going to use my cotton bud just to collect those. I might leave a few just because, as I said, the effects are quite nice on the sea scene. Right, so once that is, I'm happy with the base of that painting, I'm going to start building up the colour for those waves. So I'm going to go from bottom left to mid right, and I'm going to start building that wave. So I'm actually going to just to begin with, just with my ink directly, put that down just to give me an idea of where I want that wave, the direction I want that wave to go. Add some green in. As you'll find your inks drying, you'll be able to add more depth and saturated colour as they start to dry. Use your paintbrush to move it up and move the ink around in the direction that you want it. If you want to start adding gold, feel free. I will start adding gold in a moment. For me, the beauty of alcohol inks is watching the inks dry in front of me and seeing how they mix, especially the gold, and react with the alcohol, the ink and alcohol. It's incredibly soothing, and I think you'll agree. We could all use some soothing these days. Free to use your shot glass to add your ink down. Remember, when you're shaking your gold, to put your finger on the top. Remember you can use your breath to move the direction you want your ink to go in. Beautiful thing about using metallics, not everyone likes to use metallics, they're quite a, I'd say, selective taste, is that it makes your painting incredibly interactive if it's hanging in your home. So from one angle, it will look completely different from when the light hits it from another angle, which means throughout the day, it's just stunning. It's like you have two different artworks on your wall. So as you can see, I do like adding metallic. So I'm starting to add the waves on this side, on the left of my piece. So I'm letting the main wave just dry a bit before I start adding to that. I'm just going to show you something with the stippling. What I like to do is I'm going to drop lots of dots next to each other in like a line. And it creates sort of this bubbling effect. And then I'm going to add a bit of darker wash into it. And then this is as I was mentioning earlier with the stippling, you're creating these like layers of stippling, which work quite well in and also extremely relaxing doing it. So as I said, with the dried ink, if you're not happy with it, it doesn't have to stay that way. Just pop your paintbrush in the isopropyl and you can reactivate it and move it about or change it how you'd like it to be. So all of this, the back of the sea near the horizon, I'm going to start reactivating the ink and just dragging my paintbrush over it to create these like waves that will dry, hopefully, in that way. Again, if you've got any sediment on your paintbrush or on your paper, just try and rinse off your paintbrush. If you need to rinse out your shot glass, again, you can do that with some of the isopropyl alcohol. Don't be afraid to load up your paper with the ink. Especially if you do that with both of the colours, they will dry really beautifully, mixing into each other. So now I'm just sorting out that wave, taking some of that ink off. So when you think about a wave, when it starts to break at the top, it has that smooth, almost like lines of the water. So I'm just taking some of that off, making it lighter and smoother. I'm going to add some more depth to that wave. The next technique, which I personally love using, I use it in a lot of my art, is called stippling, or some artists call them blooms. What you want to do is rinse off your paintbrush again, and again load it up with your alcohol. Dip off any excess, and then you can either do this in wet ink, so I'll try it with wet ink first and then the dry ink, is you dip your alcohol straight into the wet ink, and it will create this beautiful circular part where the alcohol has repelled the ink. Now, if you're doing that on wet ink, depending on how big that bloom and stipple is, it may be that the ink, when it starts to dry, will make that smaller or it will disappear. But if you keep, on the wet ink, if you keep dipping that paintbrush in where you've put it, it should stay there. While it is wet, you can build up the depth and the layers of that stippling by popping your paintbrush in for another colour, for example, and then adding another dot in where you've just put it. And as it dries, it will create this layered, beautiful layered effect of that circle. So it works in the same way if you do it in dry ink. In dry ink, it does mean that that circle will be slightly more prominent. You'll be able to see it has crisp lines. So for example, here, if you try it in your dried wash, it should leave a beautiful circle. Why am I showing you this particular technique? It's great with water scenes or seascapes to use them I'll just show you, to use them for when waves are foaming, when the wave breaks. You can see the ink the alcohol leaving these beautiful sprays of circles. Yeah, they're great. It's a good one to use. So you can do those stippling yourself, so you can place them exactly where you want them. If you're looking for a more natural spray of sea, for example, dip your paintbrush again in the alcohol, place it where you, sort of the direction you want it to go, and then flick, just like flick the paintbrush with your finger, and it will create a more natural placement of where that spray is going to go. Again, it works the same if you're doing it in wet ink. It will repel the ink, but as the ink dries, you might find that they disappear. But actually, I quite like that because they won't disappear completely. There'll be a beautiful sort of echo of where that alcohol had landed. If it's in the dry ink, they will leave beautiful circular dots, circles. So I'm adding the cresting at the top of that wave now, just by adding lots of circles of alcohol. We'll see how it starts to dry. So if you feel free to move on to the other paintings if you'd like, if you have in your mind that you'd like, you know, to frame these pieces for your house, then we think about if you'd want them all to go in a line, and if so, how they might join up to each other. Or you might be doing them for friends or different places in the house. Someone in the last class ended up doing planets instead, which is totally fine. It's your artwork, whatever goes. So I'm going to think about putting the sun somewhere on my horizon. There we go. See what I've done there. I've just dolloped it on, just leaving it alone for a minute. If you do get colour like that, you can always add a little bit of the isopropyl on your paintbrush and just wipe it away, which is what I will show you. Just like that. And that's basically wiping all of the ink off the page. The last technique we will be doing, I'll just be showing you, which won't take long at all, is called lifting. Now, again, it is literally what it says, lifting. You're going to be lifting the alcohol off the page. And I would use this with potentially a smaller brush, but it's not necessary. You can use the brush that you have because your brush has a great point to it. And you would just dab a little bit of alcohol onto the end of that brush. And this is when I would use this towards the end when I'm kind of happy with the composition and I want to add those little details. So for example, if I have added like a sun or a moon, I might add the reflection in the sea. So I would just gently, really gently, just drag my paintbrush across the ink and it would just leave little details. So that is good for if you want detailing in the waves or reflections or just those bits that add to the painting for the finishing touches. I'm going to add some lifting onto the sea just underneath where I've put the sun. And that is, hopefully this will work. Just really gently manipulating the ink and you're just removing it with the tip of your paintbrush. Now I've done that. Which you can see. So I'm just going to add some more natural stippling for the wave spray now. So I'm just going to clean up my brush. Load it up and tap the excess off. And then I'm just going to flick. I think I wiped off too much excess. And you will see the spray start to build up. I want to add a few yourself. If alcohol inks is something that you think that you will continue to do, then I'm just going to talk about aftercare slightly. Now, most painters will varnish their works, and like most mediums, like acrylic, oil painting, if they're left in direct sunlight, the colour will start to fade. With that in mind, it's not such a problem. If you think, no, these were great, I probably won't do it again. I would suggest this is not obligatory. If you do get them framed professionally, then you can, most framers, mine certainly do, will put on art glass, which has UV protectant already in the glass, which would negate having to use a sealant. I would just say with that, if you're not going to seal it, just be careful how you handle it, because they can scratch quite easily. So just handle it carefully. If it's something that you think, actually, no, I'm quite enjoying this, I might maybe buy some more colours or do some more courses, then I'll just show you what I use to spray mine. So obviously I sell my work, so I can't just not seal it. It's a make, I haven't yet been able to find a make in the UK like that works as well as this particular make. It's called Krylon. You can order them online, and I use the Kamar varnish. I would do 2 coats. I'd leave 1 coat to dry, and then leave it maybe a few hours, do another coat, and then leave it 24 hours. And then I would spray on a UV resistant clear, a clear one. And that is just to make sure that the ink stays as vibrant as possible for as long as possible. Again, you can buy those on Amazon. Jackson Art online is a great place to buy alcohol ink supplies and those sprays. I've been able to find those sprays on eBay. At the beginning of the first lockdown, they were incredibly difficult to find. And if you did find them, they were extortionate rates. Thankfully, that's not the case anymore. So yeah, those are just a few ways. It's not mandatory to spray them, but just try not to leave them in direct sunlight. The magic sweet spot is to place them somewhere in your house that occasionally catches the light, because that's kind of where the magic happens if you have included gold in your paintings. So I would just say, as we're coming up, we've got another 4 minutes till we are done. I would just say I would definitely leave your artwork for 24 hours just to let all of the ink dry. Don't put anything on top of it or in a frame just yet, just because although it looks dry, you might find that some of the heavier ink on the sides is still wet, and it will just take the ink off. So just be wary of that. Secondly, if you want to share your works, please do. If you're on social media, feel free to tag me, Grace Salou Art Ball, which you can find on the back of your Masterpeace boxes, because I created the artwork for the boxes. And also tag Masterpeace London. We'd love to see your artwork and share them. But yeah. Well, that's almost it. If you feel like sharing your paintings to the screen, please do. Don't feel like you have to. And as I said, thank you so much for joining. I hope the last hour and a half hasn't been stressful, but a relaxing experience for you all. And I hope, yeah, you have a great rest of the weekend.